We have 50 hours of record time. Should we need it?
I mean, wow. That is.
I thought it was 50 minutes when I first put the card in there. That seemed the time ticking off. I was like, no, we have 50 hours.
Woof. That is super impressive.
So we're doing a podcast because, should we introduce ourselves? Should we say who we are? Or is that too soon?
I mean, I guess we could put that in the artwork and then never, ever bring up our names.
Because I foresee at some point this would be like an artifact, some sort of historical document that when we have Joe Rogan on our show, we'll be able to say, hey, this is how we got this big.
Is that the goal? Is that how we'll know we've made it? Is we get to get Joe Rogan on our podcast?
I think we'll know we made it when we're not doing this from my office.
Obviously, some things about work will come up in the podcast.
Obviously.
Because we work together.
That's
and
right.
Again, for those just joining us, we're 3 minutes in and we've not introduced ourselves.
Yeah. That's
We've got Raymond Buddy Cross. When was the last time somebody called you Raymond? That wasn't your mother yelling at you.
Usually a doctor's office or something because my name's officially Raymond, legally.
And then Joshua Charles Chappell, who sounds like an aristocrat from the 1700s.
Why do we
England?
both have aliases? You're Chuck and I'm Buddy. Which I guess Chuck is part of Charles, but
my sister doesn't have an alias. She goes strictly by Whitney. But my brother is Chip. He's the James Whitford III. So he was going to be a chip off the old block, and that backfired tremendously. For both parties, my father and him.
But Chip's normally a shorter version of Charles too, right? Or is that not the case?
I don't know.
But he has Charles nowhere in it. You're Charles. I mean, that's his legal name.
Well, his legal name is James Whitford Chappell III. And his social security number.
We'll post a photo later.
Yeah, even his voicemail, like he says James on his voicemail, and it's really weird. Like when I call him, and I'm like, are we allowed to cuss on this podcast? Are we going to put the little E?
Like I say,
next
all
to
this
it?
can be taken care of. Yeah, we'll have two versions. We'll have like the family-friendly version. Then we'll have the full-blown Chuck Chappell version.
That's important. So anyways, I'm like, who the fuck is James? And he's like, that's my name. So you don't go by Chip like at work? I mean, some people call me James, and I'm like, that's so confusing. Like, I don't...
Multiple personalities.
How do you know when to respond? So...
It could trigger how you respond. If somebody called me Raymond, that's going to be a different response normally than somebody calls me Buddy, because they don't know. I don't know them. They don't know me. Maybe that's his key. That's how he triggers how he behaves in public. Maybe.
But the only other Chip I've ever known is Dale, like the Chipmunks, Rescue Rangers or whatever they were called. Do you know any other Chips? I mean, there's got to be.
I grew up with one, actually, a Chip. It was actually a police officer and he sells cars.
Yeah, and we're definitely not mentioning the dealership if they're not.
They're going to sponsor
it.
I know who might get a truck out of it.
I'll take that. I mean, if they don't want to send us money, if they just want to be like, here's a dealer car, have at it.
That might be a good idea.
I think I'm going to go with a pseudonym for our place of work, and I think I've done it to where no one will know where we work at.
Okay.
So we're going to refer to it as California Atlantic.
I don't think they'll be able to crack that code.
Sure. I thought about this all night, and that's what I came up with.
Where you were, 6 bourbons deep into your testing.
I was like, that's phenomenal. Nobody will pick that up.
I've never figured that out. So we're not really sure why we're doing a podcast, other than that we wanted to. I had initial thoughts of... Apparently I'm a selfish person the more I think about this, but everybody I know that I want to spend time with is funny. I find them funny anyway. So the initial thought of the podcast was to have conversations with people that I personally find entertaining.
Yeah.
So that was the kickoff of all this. And then Chuck came along and said, I don't know how it came up in the conversation, but I know your eyes lit up and said, yes, let's do a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I have different intentions. I feel like the world needs to know Chuck Chappell's opinions on everything, and it'd make the world a better place. Probably a less fun place, but a better place.
It's making a more efficient place, I can tell you that.
Yes. Efficiency would increase tenfold, and that's, government doesn't really do it for me, but hearing Elon Musk and Vivek, whatever.
Ramaswamy, I think
Yes.
that's right.
And I don't mean that as disrespectful. I just was going to butcher that name.
I may have myself, I'm not sure.
But is it also an oxymoron, the Department of Government Efficiency? That seems like one of those things. Sounds like a great idea, but you guys got 4 years, and Elon is like 4 days until he's bored and he's on to the next thing.
There's opportunity all over the government, of course. Yeah, so they could really just start small and have huge gains quickly.
Yeah. And there's a shit ton of Tesla employees that are like, he'll do it. He will make it more
Ex-Tesla
efficient.
employees.
So,
yeah, that'll be interesting to see that. So yeah, we just I guess we'll date this thing too at some point. We just come out of the presidential election for 2024, and the winner, I presume, was Donald Trump. Although I don't think, I guess it's official at this point. I mean,
yeah, I think I saw somewhere where the counts were done.
Yeah.
The world hasn't ended yet, so
That's right. That's January 20th. I think that's scheduled for January 20th.
all right.
So we'll see. I have high hopes, but I've been disappointed before.
And that was, well, back to what you said earlier. The whole reason for the podcast was you just wanted to talk to people that you find interesting and maybe funny. I kind of think that's what Joe does.
Yeah.
And it's more long format. I think, we're getting away as a society with this whole, like, CNN and Fox News, and they're like, we've got 4 people, and they're in boxes on TV, and they're going to talk about this issue in 2.5 minutes. Okay.
And it's almost you have to choose one of the boxes.
Yeah.
You have to fit into one of these boxes. So.
I don't know if you've seen that movie. Did you see the Adam Sandler movie, the Uncut Gems?
No, I never did see it.
Yeah, that's the one that everybody was like, you have anxiety watching it because it's like this fast-paced, just chaotic, and that's what I think a lot of those interviews are. It's like, well, what's your opinion on this? And like they introduce themselves and they say 3 or 4 words, and they're like, well, let's get this person's opinion. I don't understand what this person just said. And I think that's what's kind of ruffled, the whole media landscape is one of the few things that hasn't changed a whole lot. Like it's still, I still remember as a kid watching NBC Nightly News and Dan Rather and Brian, whatever his name is. Jennings.
No, that's a different Jennings. That's 2 different people. But I know who both of them are in my head. I'm awful with names.
Yeah.
I'm much older than you.
One of them's the cigarette smoker.
Oh.
I think that's the Brian guy. I don't remember, but it was the same. Like that guy's at the desk. He's going over the topics, and and then it was if you're watching, what did 60 Minutes come on? ABC,
CBS,
CBS.
Yeah.
So then that followed up, and then Seinfeld or
that's right, or a change channel or something. Yeah, that's right. Which you just kind of give in the news. This is what happened.
Yeah, and there wasn't a whole lot of opinion tied to it, and I think that's where
it's all that now, if I can tell.
Yeah, so
I think that's where Rogan.
CNN started leaning that way, and then Rupert Murdoch was like, "Ha, watch this," and then we just got into this where it was like you're just watching 2 different like TVs, but they're saying kind of the same things, just with different rhetoric, and you're like, okay. All right, which one do I choose?
It's very confusing.
And if I choose this one's going to tell me I'm not intellectually
wrong. Yeah, you're evil. It's very bad. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. But to your point, I think that's why Rogan is as successful as he is. He just kind of has people on to talk about stuff, and I'm sure he obviously has opinions, but he's willing to listen to other people talk about however they view whatever they're talking about. So.
Yeah, and he has lots of people on his podcast that I don't think he necessarily agrees with, but he finds interesting, and I think that's what resonates with people.
Yeah. So
and
that's our
goal.
If we were really successful, that's what happens.
Yeah, but we're still going to interview our friends because, to your point, that's the same thing I look for, and
maybe everyone does. I'm not sure. But.
Like I'm the downer of the group.
What?
So So I definitely don't want to be around more people like me. I still have my core group of high school friends and some of the people that I've picked up along the way. And, that's the key indicator is like, can I have a conversation with this person and come away with either, he said something funny or she said something funny, or this person's really intelligent and I feel like it'll make me a better person being around them. But I don't find a lot of those.
So in your school group, because you played football, you were involved with sports. Mm-hmm. Was it also like the National Honor Society group? Was it, or was it more?
Ooh, no, that group is not. And that, I remember I snuck in as an honor graduate in high school with like a 90 GPA. I think I told you this story where, I showed up to graduation and they were like, the honor grads are over here and then everybody else is by homeroom over here. And we went to a big high school and,
how many graduated in your class?
It was like 550,
I
think.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. We started out with like 900 and I still remember that freshman orientation sitting in the gym, and I can't remember if it was one of the principals or the superintendent, but they were like, take a look to your right, take a look to your left. Those people won't be here. Oh. It's like, what are we going to war or something? I don't understand it. They're like, they're going to drop out. They're going to, we lived in a military town, so we were used to people coming and going. Yeah. So, but usually they were replaced. Like it wasn't like they just disappeared like the TV
like the
show.
Rapture or something.
Yeah, like the TV show Lost, which, spoiler alert, never seen one episode of Lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, all the things you've seen, ask me, and I haven't seen, you've never seen. That's, yeah, if you have some time to kill, that's the one to watch.
Yeah, but my buddies, in fact, that group, they all joined the military like right out of high school. I was the only one that actually went to college.
Okay.
And most of those guys are about a year older than me. And then that group kind of grew. Like some of the guys that they were in the military with came back to the States, and this was early 2000s, so you're talking like Iraq, Afghanistan invasions and all that stuff. And then they came back, went to school at Valdosta State, and that group kind of expanded. But not a lot of National Honor Society. Not a knock to those guys as not being
right. That's right.
Intelligent.
I was not in National Honor Society,
but
my friends have generally been pretty intelligent folks, educated for the most part. I'm drawing the crowd down. I'm bringing the demo back to a flat line, but most of them were older than me. A lot of my friends were older, and then all my friends almost are always more educated than I am. So.
Yeah, and they all are now college graduates, but I don't really want to point out the things that they were interested in high school. I think some of it is probably self-explanatory, because you had a couple of them, had 3 of them that went into the Marine Corps, and then they brought 2 more guys that were in the Marine Corps into that group, and then we had a couple of Army guys and reservists, and so their priorities were slightly different than everyone else's in high school.
At least had a
there were some similarities, but they were singularly focused on a different species.
You're not drinking anyway.
Just to be upfront with everybody, we did just have to pause. We had what sounded like a alarm from a Nazi warship go off, which was my telephone ringing, and just for clarification, that doesn't mean I like the Nazis. It's just the alarm that's available for iPhone. So please don't group me into the category of Donald Trump as I'm a Nazi.
It's alarming, though, so it does its job. It gets your attention. It scared the hell out of me.
The only reason I really have it is for the place we work at. Sometimes we have to take call, we can call, things like that. And, at 2 a.m. that thing will wake you up as opposed to like the Shutterfly or whatever those other ringtones that...
Well, California Atlantic is very demanding in that way. So
Yes, they are.
If your phone rings, you should get up.
Yeah, that's usually the minimum requirement.
Yeah, that's right. And really not much more is required than that. But.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about our educational levels and the people that we find interesting, and I do find other people interesting besides my friends. But that was something that, one of the topics that, we're trying to be professional and have at least some kind of semblance of organization and not just walk in and be like, hey, did you see the Tyson fight? Let's talk 3 hours about that.
That was kind of my plan, but Chuck does have notes. So.
Yeah, well, that Tyson fight you can talk about for about 3 minutes. And
I couldn't make it. I made it till I seen Jake come in on a car with his brother. Did they drive into the arena or something?
I don't know.
That's when I couldn't do it.
I hate both of them. And guys, if you ever want to be on the podcast, you're free. Well, you're not free. You have to pay to come on the podcast, but
it will not.
We will give you whatever you want. Podium, platform, whatever you want to talk about, the shenanigans that you guys want to talk about. But you cannot come on the podcast until you fight a boxer that is like ranked and is not the same age or older than me. So.
Let's be clear, Chuck and I are not fighting you.
Yeah, you're 6'5" and you're 250 pounds. Yeah, that wouldn't go over well.
No.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to, like I said, wasn't interested in really watching. I was. Actually, I saw a little bit of the fight before that, the two girls. That was a brawl from what I saw of it.
Yeah, that was a bloodbath. And apparently the last time they fought, it was like that.
Oh, they'd fought before. Yeah. I didn't know either one of them. I don't follow boxing.
I think one of them's name was Amanda Serrano, and the other girl was from Ireland, because just from the accent, her name was
Katie something. Yeah.
Katie something. But
I felt like she got hosed, but I didn't see the whole fight. I saw a couple of rounds.
Everyone felt like Serrano won that fight, and boxing, it kind of falls in that gymnastics. I don't know if you
subjective kind of.
You have girls, so you've probably watched gymnastics at some point. But I'm the Olympic guy. Like, all right, the U.S. is doing something. Let's go watch gymnastics. And my wife loves gymnastics, so. But I never understand the scoring, because it's like 15 judges.
Yeah,
and they're like, that person did a thing, and here's the points. And I'm like,
what does that mean?
All the sports that I'm inclined to follow, like there's a end zone, or there's a home plate, or there's a basket that points are scored.
There's a value in putting the
ball
in a certain
place. At the end of the competition, one of those players or teams has more points, runs, something than the other team. And so, that's why, like, even the UFC, like, okay, you got your knockouts, you got submissions, but then it goes to the judges card, and it's like, what did you guys like?
What were you watching?
I don't know what punches landed. Like, I didn't throw a punch the entire match, but I choked a guy out for 7 minutes total, and he just he didn't do anything except just squirm back and forth. But at the end of it, he got up and punched me in the face 3 times, and so he landed more punches than me. He won the round. I don't.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't survive the match, then you obviously have a clear winner.
Do you think we'll ever get to that, like where it's like death match?
Well, we mentioned Rogan earlier, but I was just listening to him and, of all people, Theo Vaughn the other night, and they talked about, like, back in the day, I think the longest boxing match, I'm probably screw this up, was like, it was over 200 rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Last, like,
Jack
4 or 5
Johnson.
Hours. Yeah.
Jack Johnson, the boxer, not the singer from Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right. That would be different. Yeah. I've been sitting waiting.
Now we got to take that out of the podcast. We're going to get sued.
Copyright.
Jesus.
My voice is so much like Jack Johnson's. Yeah, Theo had the question, what if you got 4 hours? What if you got to take a shit? And Theo suggested they have a diaper round. Yeah, but so they would just fight until one of them gave up. I never did get that end part of it. Why would you fight so long if at some point someone didn't die or just leave the arena?
I mean, and like, hooray for the fighters, but God almighty, if you bought a ticket to that thing and you were like,
I got to go to work in the morning or tonight.
I mean, and Jack Johnson, he fought like in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So
I think it was Jack Johnson. I think you're right. I think that's the name they mentioned.
I mean, if you're sitting there and it's like, I got to be back at the docks at like, what's going on here? Are these guys going to wrap this up or what? And I'd venture to guess that there wasn't a lot of discussion about CTE and concussions and things like that.
This is, well, yeah. If you want to fight, there's are professional retired boxers, successful boxers that haven't fought 276 rounds.
Yeah.
That's a career plus, you know?
Yeah. And that's, I saw Evander Holyfield, and apparently Netflix was having technical issues last night.
Okay, it wasn't just me then.
I was like, man, this dude is shot. He's not answering any of the questions. And then finally he was on there. They were him and Lennox Lewis, who I didn't recognize because he didn't have his long dreadlocks that he had in Ocean's 11 when him and
That's right.
Is it the current mayor of Kiev? It's one of the Klitschko brothers.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if
He's
it's
the mayor of Kiev?
one of the boxers. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was Klitschko in that movie. I think it was.
Yeah. So there's Vladimir and the other one. And I think Vladimir is
he's the mayor.
I don't think he's the mayor. No, I think the brother is the mayor, but I think Vladimir was the better boxer. But I'm fairly certain they were both world champion at some time. So, I mean, it's kind of a,
That's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie. I like the movie, but I remember watching, they got two professional boxers. And it was the worst looking fake boxing.
Yeah, they like danced around and then the power went out.
Yeah. Two guys that really know how to do it looked awful.
They were just, but obviously you can't have a boxing movie like Rocky where every punch is a haymaker that would kill a normal human being.
They'd be deaf.
Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa were just like, it was just a jab. I just took a jab to the face. Like, no, that was like 7 full like uppercuts.
Yeah.
And you didn't leave your feet. Like your head barely rocked back. Like, the sound is terrifying. And I think that's something that throws a lot of people off is that Sylvester Stallone wrote that movie. I don't think a lot of people are just like, oh, the guy that's retarded that plays Rocky, and it's like, no, he's not.
It's not really retarded.
He's not really retarded, and the guy that plays him is, I think he had like some kind of form of palsy or something when he was born. That's why his
mouth doesn't look just right.
But like he's written a ton of movies.
Yeah.
And directed a bunch of movies.
Did he write Rambo too?
I think so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he wrote that one too. I think he did I don't think he wrote the new like Creed movies where he was kind of the mentor, but I know he did the Rambo movies. Going back to talking about Nazis, did you see the soccer movie that he was in with Pele? That was a World War II.
I don't think I saw it.
I think it was called Victory.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing he's on the cover of of course, he's the star. But.
And the weird German guy that's always kind of evil. He's obviously dead now, but it's like something Van Buren or something like that. But he was in, did you ever see Shutter Island?
No.
With Leonardo DiCaprio?
I know the movie. I don't think
he was in it. He's been in a pile of stuff.
Is he bald-headed?
I think
he's dead now.
But I think he was towards the end of his career. But
I'm on a different guy.
I think he was in that same kind of age group with like Christopher Plummer.
Okay.
So, and trying to think of the actors back then. That's where my trivia starts to fade quickly. Is when you start getting into like Christopher Plummer early movies and
Lord. Yes.
Who's the guy that played Moses?
Actually, no. See, I'm
Charlton Heston.
Yeah. I knew that one. I knew the face anyway. If you could see what I could see in my head.
Like I talk to people about Charlton Heston, and the only thing they remember is him holding up a musket saying, "Take it out of my cold, dead hands." And I'm like,
in a commercial.
Yeah, I remember him doing that too. I think it was also on Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine, which, obviously a big Second Amendment guy, Charlton Heston.
Yeah, he's made it very plain. That's what he felt like.
So that's actually, we're talking about celebrities, and that's one of the notes I had going back to the election.
Yeah.
Is all of the celebrities that came out, and on both sides, but mainly for Harris and Walz. Do you think celebrities have the same amount of cachet with people, I made the joke about Robert De Niro coming out and being like, I was awesome in Raging Bull, vote for this person.
That's right.
And people were just like, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And I think people now are, you actually have influencers who I think actually have influence over people in their decisions, or they think they do.
They've been labeled as such.
I think the whole like movie star or celebrity, I think there have been some little peaks, like you go back to like the 2020 riots and George Floyd and all that, and there were some people like telling NBA players like shut up and dribble.
That's right.
Like, that's probably not the best thing to tell those guys, but do you think that celebrities feel like if I tell people to do something, they're going to do it because I was on Seinfeld? Because I've never had that feeling about a celebrity.
No,
like if some celebrity came out and they were like, even if I liked a candidate and they were like, I think you should vote for this candidate, it would have no bearing on me. But do you think it used to? Do you think people, not worshipped at the altar of George Clooney, but kind of?
That's right. I don't know. I feel the same way you do. I've never felt that way, that if someone famous, whether I like the actor or personality or not, would never influence how I would vote or how I would feel about a certain thing. They would get my attention. That part is true. I think they influence like attention. They influence people to pay attention to what's going on and maybe, hopefully, build their own view on what they know. But I don't know if it's more or less. I never, Taylor Swift's a good example. She endorses a candidate normally, and there are probably
Who's
people. That? Tall girl. She dates a football player, I think.
Never heard of her.
This is going to get ratings right here, I guarantee you. There'll be a swarm of adolescent girls ready to kill us both.
What are they? Swifties? Is that what they're called? Got to keep my head on a swivel now when I'm walking around town.
Yeah, don't go to the mall.
That's him. What he did was worse than what Kanye West did to her. Like,
and you've already used the word Nazi, so the two together, you're doomed. Yeah, but I think there are, and of course these people aren't old enough to vote, but I don't know. It's hard to put your mind in a place that would understand what's going on there. It's hard to see it from that perspective, because I really am hopeful that most people kind of make their own decisions. Now, I have two girls, or college age girls. One of them's actually still actively in college, so there's that perspective, which you can imagine what it is. And it's not a non-educated perspective. It's just different from what, if you're in college and have never really been part of society to the point where you're earning money and having to live on your own, of course, then there's a different perspective to how you would judge things. But I don't think they're influenced by celebrities, so to speak. I don't think it'd be Taylor or whoever comes out and endorses somebody. They're not going to blindly endorse that candidate. They do have some thought into what they're doing. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think if it's more or less, but I just don't see that mattering. But I do see this. I know, like you mentioned George Clooney. People will boycott a film or a restaurant or something depending on what that person supports, which is, I guess, the best way to, if you want to change, if you're trying to have an impact on this person because you don't believe or agree with them, what they think politically or religiously or whatever, that's a way to get there, I guess, theoretically. But
I think that also, muzzles a lot of celebrities because, wasn't it John Cena that said something about China and then had to come out and do like a full YouTube video on how great China is because they were like, hey man, we don't just sell these movies here in America.
we're looking for return from around the globe.
So he was like, oh, it's, I'm sorry that I said Taiwan and not Chinese Taipei. It's like, woof.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a wise decision. I mean, everybody has a job. His job is to get people into a theater. So you don't want to piss any demographic off. So it's probably best you hold that close to vest. But if you're Taylor Swift or Oprah Winfrey or one of these people are billionaires, let's care. You can let it fly, and then it's not going to really have an NBA impact on your life.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever actively boycotted like a movie or something?
Never.
I mean, I had in college, more so than now, more conservative leaning. Grew up in a military family. My dad worked for Ronald Reagan when we lived in California. He was the military took care of his ranch, and so part of my dad's job as CE commander, which was like facilities commander, was make sure if he needed anything at the ranch, they'd go take care of it. And he's got some photos of him. It's pretty cool. So, my parents were big Reagan folks, but, as you get older, you start to make your own decisions and think about certain things. But I clearly remember when the Dixie Chicks went after George W. Bush. And, there was like a radio station in Valdosta that was just like, this is like, it was just a recording of this is when we would usually play the Dixie Chicks, but it'll just be silent for 3 minutes, and then it would go on to the next song. And I was like, but then there was like people buying Dixie Chicks albums and burning them. Like, you already paid for it. Like,
do you understand what just happened there?
I'm more than happy for somebody if this podcast was like fee based and they were like, I hate Joe, I'm gonna buy it and then burn the computer.
It would change the whole concept.
You're free to do that. I will feel bad about it, but not as my wallet increases in thickness. So, but yeah, like I remember in college we went and saw some Tom Hanks movie. It was one of the books.
Angels and Demons, or
yeah, it was the first one. What was the first one?
The first one was the big book. The second book, actually, wasn't it? They're out of order, it seems like.
The Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code, right. It was a code. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah. So, and I remember me and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we went to go see it. And, like, there was this group of people outside the theater, and they were like, you're going to hell. And I was like, it's actually Theater 4 is where I'm going to see this movie.
But I appreciate the heads up.
But, like, I just, thank you. And I was just like, is that how you... Is that how you're convincing me that, because I'm actually wouldn't consider myself like super religious, believe in God, believe in Jesus, just isolated like half the globe. So just might have to scrub that for financial gain.
We'll have this back in once we're successful.
I'll explain that to St. Pete one day. Did you delete us from your podcast? Yes, I did, to be inclusive. But, I've never understood, like after the election and all these people are going after people that voted for Trump. Is that your plan to get them to join you, is calling them uneducated and stupid? Because I think you're going to need a new plan. I don't
think they're ever going to like you now.
I don't think that's how I seem to remember somebody saying something about honey versus vinegar. Like,
some of these old parables have meanings that you probably need to discuss.
But so that's what it makes me just think, that celebrities don't have the influence that they think they have. And does that make them sad? I know there's some celebrities that are like, I don't give two shits.
Yeah.
But there's probably some celebrities like, I'm so-and-so. I'm an important person.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you more educated than me? Because you pretend half the year and get paid for it, and that makes you smarter? I mean, it might make you smarter because you're pretending.
That's right.
For half the year. But I don't understand how I have much more education than a lot of these people that are actors and actresses, and they're telling me how my life should be. Well, I don't have a valet like you do at the house that's like,
that's right.
Wake up, you have to be at the production at this time, here's all your pre-cooked meals for the week. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a chef that's just like showing up making you food, like, how are you relating to the person that's trying to figure out, what am I going to do to pay bills, what am I going to do to get a better job? Like, you're just lecturing people. And I don't know if celebrities have enough self-awareness to
at some point
like,
they probably lose it. I mean, I think once you become so ultra famous, and because you can't be a part of real society anymore, your fame excludes you from that. You can't go shopping for shoes or go to get your oil change. I mean, all that's off limits to you now, especially if you're really high level famous. So I think just in that concept, you lose track of what reality is for 99% of the world, Yeah. So whether they think they're still right or not, I would assume they do. But how committed are they to that thought? It'd be hard to say. I think most of them are pretty intelligent.
Because it's kind of like Donald, right? Like, there's nobody around him that can tell him,
Yeah.
that wasn't very smart. And he's just like, who are you? Like,
That's right. So you're fired.
You're fired. Like, I've been the president of the United States, and now I'm the president again. What do you mean? I should do it this way. I've done it my way.
Yeah.
And that is not an infringement on Frank Sinatra, by the way. So you're not getting any money.
We're not going to make any money. We're going to be paying copyright fees for.
But I think that there's no one around them that's like, hey,
Yeah, I don't think so.
you're a tool.
That's not.
What was it? Who was the famous Roman emperor? I think it was Marcus Aurelius that had a slave, which bad form, but whatever.
Here we go.
He just had this person stand behind him, like when he was giving, big speeches or in front of large crowds, and the sole job of this person was just to tell him, "You're just a man. You're just a man," to kind of give him some humility, I guess. And
It's like the coach on the sideline that has the head coach's belt and pulls him back off the field every time.
I don't think it's the same kind of thing. Because do you think? And
I may be confused.
do you think that Nick Saban thinks he's a man?
Do you think he thinks he's a man?
Yeah, I don't. Well, maybe somebody needs to tell the Alabama fan base that he's just a man.
Yeah, I think Saban
and
believes
not
he's
a
a man.
god.
Yeah, for a long time there, 17 years, I thought higher of him than just a mortal. But
Yeah, I guess we should go ahead and get our college football allegiances out of the
yeah.
way, because we'll go ahead and
I'll let you go first since you're
knock out Big Ten country. And is the Pac-12 still a thing? Is that
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. No. What's UCLA play? What do they play now? 'Cause USC,
are they in the ACC? Which
That would be ridiculous.
I know Cal is.
That'd be-
I don't know. man.
Is Cal in the ACC?
I'm fairly certain. Go ahead and. All right, we don't have a Jamie, but there's somebody in the background right now Googling this.
Let's see.
It's Raymond. It's not Buddy. It's Raymond.
That's the other one.
What schools?
I guess
There's
it's
not like a
football
members
standing.
list?
Probably. I'm going to type with one finger. So it's,
Because isn't Notre Dame like every sport except for football is in the ACC? All right. I mean, we're already off to a bang. SMU, that's Texas. Yep. Cal and Stanford at the bottom.
is this football standings? Is
Yeah.
this everybody or is this just the ACC?
That's the ACC, baby.
Yeah, Duke. Yeah, Tech,
Stanford, California.
Stanford, and California. See, they need to rename these. California and Stanford cannot be in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, SMU is too. And
SMU, yeah.
Is SMU more ridiculous than California and Stanford? Because it's
Well, it's not all the way to the left-hand side, anyway.
well, is it ridiculous because they're leading the conference? They're just
They love it. They're big fans of it.
SMU is like, hey, hold my coffee. Atlantic Coast, what was SMU in? Were they like in the Sun Belt or Conference
It was
USA?
like, it wasn't one of the Power Fives, was it? I thought it
No.
was- yeah.
And they just moseyed on into the ACC and said,
Let's try this.
Here, hold my
Let's dip
beer.
our toe over here.
Watch this.
And Florida State is at the very bottom, which is bizarre, too.
Right below Stanford and Cal.
That's right.
Which should be more embarrassing for Florida State. Like, not only are you in last place, you're behind the two teams from California that are in the
You're almost out
Atlantic
of the conference.
Coast Conference. But yeah, so SMU, obviously, what's the guy's name? I know you saw the Pony Express on ESPN.
Oh, yeah. 30 for 30.
What was the guy's name? Remember, he had the greatest name ever, the booster that.
Oh, I'm not going to be able to recall this.
So apparently they've turned the money flow back on since NIL is in place, and now SMU is back up to the top of football glory.
Yeah, because they had the death penalty, didn't they?
Yeah, they got shut down. And remember, they were non-existent.
Right.
I mean, they had a team, but they were just terrible for
Is that
years.
where Eric Dickerson played? Is that right?
Yeah, that was the
year.
That was
yeah.
the years. Him and Craig James, which
That's right.
I don't.
Whatever happened to him? He's an announcer. Or he was on television
I
for a
think
while.
it had something to do with his kid and the Mike Leach thing at Texas Tech.
Oh, wow.
I think because he made some comments on the air or something. I don't know. Are we going to get sued if I?
Like Greg James.
I said
We haven't
I
seen him in
don't.
20
I
years.
don't know what happened there.
Maybe he's tuning into the Buddy and Chuck podcast. I'm offended.
But yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I'm also not apologizing. I will Michael Scott this. I will shut down this podcast and create a new podcast. I have an unlimited set of names for paper companies and podcasts.
That's right.
But yeah, I think SMU it's in Dallas, and I mean Texas just has stupid money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody talks about like the billionaires in California and like Silicon Valley, and like Texas is like hold my beer. Like you guys actually had to like create software. I just drilled into the ground and became a billionaire.
It's much easier for me.
Yeah. And
But
then
Texas, the University of Texas, there was a rank. I don't know if it was a rankings or I remember University of Texas was going after Saban at one point, and they were like the only school that could outpay him over Alabama.
Yeah.
So and who knows what that would have been? He was making $10-12 million a year, I think, the last year.
So back to our allegiances.
Yes.
So, yes, I grew up as a South Carolina fan. That was introduced to me at an early age by family. And
so your family were...
my father's side. So he's from
South Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He played baseball at the University of South Carolina at Aiken. And then he played 1 year at South Carolina. So, and then he joined the military because he knew he wasn't very good at baseball, like his offspring. No, I think he actually got drafted. Like the baseball draft, they've got like 100 rounds. It's ridiculous. But he got drafted, and he was like, And I think Vietnam was going on, and he was like, well, I'm just going to join. And he joined the Air Force where he knew there would be no danger whatsoever.
But he was in for quite a while.
Yeah. He was in for 5 years enlisted, got out, went back to school, and got his degree, and then was in for another 25 as an officer.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't realize how that worked. So you could go in. I thought you stayed in. Is that an option? Can you stay in the military and go to school?
Yeah, they have the different branches call it different things. Like it's OCS, Officer Candidate School, or OTS, Officer Training School, but. Yeah, there's a lot of people that actually do that. They'll go in enlisted, work their way up. Somebody will recommend them for one of those schools. They'll go to that, and then they'll start, and they'll become like the lowest ranking officer, and they'll be like 10 years older than everybody else.
But he's not active duty while he's going to school?
No, he actually got out and then went back in.
Okay. That's interesting. That'd be the way to do it, I would think.
But yeah, so South Carolina fan. Obviously not a lot of glory years there. We had the Spurrier years, which was so good. Just growing up in Georgia and being a Carolina fan, you can just imagine the number of cock jokes that I had to just take phrasing.
Yeah, be careful there.
So, when not only was it great that South Carolina was good and they were beating Georgia, but it was Spurrier who pretty much ruined the lives of the 90s and early 2000 Georgia fans.
Yeah, he's probably the most hated man in Georgia, I would think.
Yeah.
Even more than Saban.
Yeah, and I love Lee Corso, but I think that's could you imagine Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier on College game day? Because, Saban is the consummate professional, and Spurrier is just like, never mind that jackass. This is who's going to win.
Yeah, that would be a different show.
So, you're an Alabama fan.
I am an Alabama fan.
From Brunswick, Georgia.
From Brunswick, Georgia. Born and raised in Brunswick, Georgia.
How does that happen?
I don't quite sure. Same thing, influenced by my parents. My mother is from Alabama, born and raised in Alabama. My father, however, was from New Jersey. So Rutgers being what they are, that really didn't come up on the plate. And so from...
First college football game, though.
Oh, yeah? Yours?
No, first college football game ever.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Rutgers. I think they
Was
won.
it?
Yeah, I think they won. Yeah. You got the Google up. Pull it up.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but that
and that is one of those pieces of trivia that Chuck Chappell will drop in on this podcast.
Yeah, we need to go play trivia, apparently, because...
But it's not because I read a book or something. I'm pretty sure it was on like EA Sports, NCAA football one year.
Yeah.
It's like, when the screen was loading, it would just give you like trivia tidbits. And I think that was one of like Rutgers was the first football game.
Yeah, but watching Alabama. I remember watching Alabama was when I was like playing football, like real small. And Daddy was a huge fan. I guess he got, of course, at the time they were great. They've been probably consistently great through periods of time throughout my life. So it was
actually weirder that someone from New Jersey was
I know
Alabama fan.
But like I say, who else is going to pull for the first football team ever?
Because there's a huge Alabama contingent in Pennsylvania because Joe Namath was from Pennsylvania and went to Alabama, and so there's still Joe Willie.
So do you know who they played without cheating and looking at the screen?
I'm going to say it was one of the Ivy League schools, so probably like Princeton or something.
It was Princeton.
Oh, how about that?
And it was November 6th, 1869. And the Rutgers Queensmen, this is a lost. Is this a game? It's 6-4. What happened?
2 safeties. Wow.
It was a defensive battle. I can't be looking at this right.
Princeton, Rutgers.
They were both, it was the first game. They were both 0-0, and Rutgers won 6-4. It was all in the first quarter. They played one quarter? Or did they have a quarter? It's like the boxing 270 round.
I don't know. I mean, 1869. It seems like they got over the Civil War way too fast. Like they're already playing games. That's less than 4 years, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the rules. Grounds must be 360 feet long. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, another tidbit of trivia from NCAA college football, like the forward pass.
There was no throwing or running with the ball.
I don't know.
How'd they score 4? It had to score. That's the only way you could score was safeties, I guess.
I don't know.
If either it is a foul and the ball then must be thrown perpendicularly in the air by the side causing the foul. What?
Yeah. I'm fairly certain the forward pass was not instituted until like the early 1900s. And the only reason that it was instituted was because Harvard didn't want to change the stadium because they were having a bunch of head injuries. And they were like, we got to figure out how to
these rules.
Yeah, we were like, we got to spread this out a little bit. And so the idea was let's make the field wider for these longer perpendicular passes. And so Harvard couldn't do it because their stadium had already been built. And I think Teddy Roosevelt was involved with it. And I think Teddy Roosevelt was like, why don't you guys just throw the ball downfield? And they were just like, that's what we'll do. But then no team did that for like the next 40 years. Everybody just ran like the wishbone. So I don't, they would sneak one pass in a game.
What is going on? I don't understand. There's weird pictures on here, painted by Rutgers graduate. And it looks like, I won't say that, but the game you play, it's like tag when you're little boys play. It's just chaos. It's just like T-ball for 5-year-olds. It's just people running around randomly in the field.
Why is there a painting? Like, I'm fairly certain Matthew Brady was like the big Civil War photographer. Is that right? Can you?
This is a piece of art.
Let me check that. You're in depth over there in Rutgers football.
The rules. Each side shall number 25 players. That's why it's chaos. You can't trip. One of the first choices shall be 4 judges and 2 referees. Those judges, and gives it some sort of subjective feel.
Yeah, there you go, man.
It's like,
there's that history degree paying off. Matthew Brady, American photographer, Civil War. So that guy was around, but he didn't want to photograph. Like he didn't want.
He didn't understand what was going on. Like we didn't.
What
just
was
paint
the NFL Films?
Yeah.
What was the guy's name?
I
can remember the music.
No, I can't remember anybody's name. He died. Yeah.
Because they were the first ones to do like the slow motion passes in the air and like the cameraman's following it perfect.
Yeah. What was his name? Now it troubles me because I watched all that for years.
That's something that's starting to go downhill. Is you watch like a college football game or a pro football game and the zone read, and it like you just see a running back and 3 defensive linemen crush him. And then all of a sudden the camera like snaps 30 yards downfield.
They can't follow
Jalen Milrow is, also the fastest human being in the world running down the sideline. And it's like,
how'd he get there?
How'd you guys not keep up with that? Like there's not somebody in y'all's headset that was like, that's just yelling, QB, stay on the QB.
Watch number 4.
The NFL Films guy, I think his name's Steve something.
Steve, it is Steve. We're getting there. If you feed me enough tidbits, and by tidbits I mean first and last name, I will finally remember who it is.
Yeah, because wasn't he the one that had like the show on HBO?
Yeah.
It was like NFL, the
Some
NFL
OC
Today,
or something comes to mind. I can't remember. I don't know. I'm sure.
So you're thinking he's
fan
Polish?
knows.
That's what you're going with.
And it's some sort of odd racial slur. Let's see. Steve NF. Let's see if Chuck can type faster than Buddy. Films.
NFL Films. Steve Sable. Steve Sable.
Sounds close.
Yeah, you threw a ski on the end of that. Sabolski. And maybe he was Polish. Maybe it was one of those where they changed it.
Yeah.
You know, like it came to the States.
I don't think my memory's not that good.
People over here don't like the Poles.
Wasn't his father involved?
I think his dad was the one that actually owned the company.
Yeah.
And he this was like a Vince McMahon thing, but Steve didn't rape or traffic a bunch of women.
He wasn't nearly as active in that field.
Again, that is all data from Netflix documentary. That is not my opinion on that.
So you watched that?
Yeah.
The Vince McMahon?
Well, I didn't, Father of the Year award here. This was during the hurricane. So Helene.
Oh, yeah.
We went to Atlanta, took the boys to the Braves game. And we drove up, and usually a 3.5, 4 hour drive was like a 6 hour drive because it was a parking lot on 16.
Yeah.
So we get there and it's super late. And like I've been drinking Red Bull the entire time just to stay awake.
You're fun to be around.
Well, I'll turn on Netflix and the boys are like, we can't go to sleep either. And it was like Vince McMahon. And they were like, isn't that the guy that's in charge of like the wrestlers? Yeah. When I was y'all's age, I used to watch wrestling. And, the 12-year-old's like, isn't it fake? And I was like, it's predetermined results, but like it's a 300-pound man doing a front flip landing on another man.
There's a real risk of injury. That's why I'm watching.
And in the first 5 minutes, there's some reporter who's like, it's fake. And one of the wrestlers just slaps the shit out of him. So, but we get into it, and the first couple of episodes are good. It's kind of the history of the WWE, and that's one of those things where I get angry because I grew up and it was the WWF. And
that's
then,
right.
The World Wildlife Foundation came in and was like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
We've been around longer. And it's like, I've never even heard of you.
Wasn't there two of them, though? Was it WCW and WWF?
Yeah. And that's addressed in it. It talks about the back and forth because the WCW became huge. Yeah. And then the WWF was playing catch up. And in fact, they blame the downfall on the WCW on Mike Tyson because the WWF brought Mike Tyson in, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, Mike Tyson!"
Oh yeah.
And they started watching, and they just started doing ridiculous stuff. And Stone Cold showed up and started just drinking beer and
in the ring,
throwing it into the crowd. And they were like, "This isn't wrestling. This is just a party."
That's what it is. It's a big show. Now they got Pat McAfee involved as part of it anyway.
Oh Christ!
So he fits right in.
I mean, does he own any shirts with sleeves?
No.
And he's not cut. Like, I mean, he's in good shape.
Yeah.
He's another person like Jake Paul who would come in here and just pound me into the ground. McAfee would punt me out your window, and but like, I mean, a little bit of self-awareness. Read the room there, Pat.
He does. Apparently, he's very popular, and I like Pat too. He's just he's. I can understand why, and I've been watching him for a long time actually. My oldest daughter was in middle school when we first got tuned into him doing his little podcast, which has now grown into a top earner for ESPN. But he's. I can at least understand why people are shocked by it. If you've never seen him and he pops up on your screen Saturday morning, like, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah.
It's like you have a professional wrestler been introduced to college football.
Yeah, I do enjoy the little student kick for money.
Yes. They tell them they suck.
Yeah,
they miss it.
Yeah, it's just like you are awful. It's like I don't. What do you think that is? Like the percentage of the population. If you were like, can you make a 25-yard field goal?
Oh, I bet it's low. I bet it's really low. I don't think I could do it. I had an opportunity to kick one in the whatever the stadium was before Atlanta moved to the Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, the Georgia Dome.
The Georgia Dome, yeah. Like they've imploded it at this point. But not long after it opened, we went to like a pre-season. You could tour the place, and they had the opportunity to kick I think it's 25. It may have been. It was somewhere around. It wasn't very long, But just standing on the field looking at it, I was like, "There's no way I can make this. I might not get it off the ground."
Like, and I don't think a lot of people realize like a 25-yard field goal is like an extra point. Well, an old extra point.
Old extra point. Yeah.
Well, extra point in college, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, why do they not have the same fucking rules? Is that not just
You can't watch a
infuriate
kickoff
you?
anymore on NFL. You got to watch. You watch college games, and they have the real kickoff still. Yeah, I still don't quite get my head around what the NFL's doing with the kickoff, but they seem happy with it.
You know, and the overtime, like college overtime is another anxiety-driven. Where the NFL, it's just like, who's going to get close enough to kick a field goal and put us out of our misery? Whereas the college overtime is like, it's like crack cocaine, and I want more of it.
Yeah,
you know, like I remember watching. Who's the youngest Manning brother?
Eli.
Yeah, I remember Eli, and I think it was Matt Jones was the quarterback at Arkansas, the one that ended up being a receiver for the Jaguars, and then did some drugs. Which
that's what it's prone to do.
Kind of
for the Jaguars players.
Yeah, I want to give him a pass for doing drugs as a Jaguar, but anyways, you know, Matt Jones in Arkansas, and I want to say that was a Houston Nut Arkansas team, ran the option in the SEC, and Matt Jones was phenomenal at it. Like he was like rushing for 1,000-something yards as a quarterback. And they played Ole Miss, and that was that 7 overtime game in like 2001 or 2002 or something like that. And it was just like, I love it. Like I was like, I don't want it to end. You know?
Yeah, Alabama beat Auburn a few years ago. So I think it was when Mechie was still there. In four overtimes or something. It was just painful to watch, you know. But you fall in love with it, especially if you win. It's like, oh, this is the greatest game ever.
I did want to give a shout out. I think I saw where Minchie.
Yeah.
He played in his first
John
game.
Mechie, yeah.
The other day. He had cancer or something.
Yeah, he went right when he graduated.
Yeah, so
he blew his knee out. Yeah.
He found it. Yeah, so good for him.
Yep, he's a good fellow.
And that's, you know, I know an unreasonable amount about Alabama football because my wife's an Alabama fan.
It's not by choice.
Yeah, her
you're
family
just exposed to
Alabama fans, you know, who are relentless. Like, you know, a few weeks ago when you guys snuck out by the skin of your teeth.
I think so, yeah. They should have been.
My phone's blown up with, haha, eat a cock. And it's like, I mean, you guys have like 8 national championships over the last 17 years. And South Carolina
lost to South Carolina, yeah.
You know, struggling to go to bowl games. But, yep, I'm your son-in-law. So,
They shouldn't be too cocky about that game, that's for sure. This whole year has been up and down, or mostly down. Now it's picked up the last couple of weeks. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. But,
I think that's when I knew me and my wife were soulmates was we were watching something, ESPN or something, and she just nonchalant. She was like, hey, did you hear that South Carolina just got brand new uniforms this season? And I was like, wow, why does my wife know that? And it's very erotic. And I was like, no, I didn't hear that. And she said, yeah. She said Alabama got new practice uniforms, so they donated their practice uniforms to Carolina because of the similar color scheme. And I was like, you realize their practice uniforms say Bama on them. She was like, I'm sure South Carolina will just spray paint over that. I was like,
you kept seeing the graffiti in Columbia.
So I just walked back to my bedroom after my wife just kicked me between the legs.
That was pretty good. Good for her.
But you know what she doesn't talk shit about? Is about South Carolina's women's basketball team, because pretty unstoppable. All right? And as every South Carolina football fan dreams of, women's basketball season is here.
We can move on.
No one cares about the college football playoff, but Don Staley and them girls are kicking ass.
Did they win?
Yeah,
was it last year?
Yeah, they won the national championship. Yeah. Perfect season.
They beat, what's her name, right? Caitlin?
Yeah, Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah. Yep, Iowa. Yeah.
And have they traditionally been good? Or
since Don Staley got there, they have. Yeah.
Did you watch any of it? And I'm looking right at you so I can tell if you're lying or not.
The championship game? Or like any of
just like in-season South Carolina basketball?
Yeah, I actually watched Sunday when they were playing NC State. Yeah.
So, in my efforts not to be misogynistic, do you find it entertaining to watch women's college, or women's basketball in general? And do you watch men's basketball?
Yeah, I don't watch college athletics as much as I used to. Dad,
Yeah,
and kids,
There's
things going on. But I think I lean more into like the big events. So like, will I watch every South Carolina women's basketball game this year? No.
But the fact that you find it entertaining to watch, if it wasn't South Carolina, would you just watch a random game?
I don't know. And I think, you're starting to see a lot of, obviously with like the Caitlin Clark and the Angel Reese, and I think there's a girl from USC, I think her name's like Juju Watkins, but she's like ahead of Caitlin Clark's scoring record as a sophomore, so she might have the potential to be the next leading scorer. I find myself drawn almost like we were talking about the Olympics, like big games. Like when South Carolina played LSU, you got Dawn Staley, you got Kim Mulkey, you got Angel Reese. Like South Carolina plays UConn women. Like I'll watch that game. Do I find it as entertaining as men's basketball? No. It's a different game. The men's game is so much about athleticism.
Yeah.
The women's game, I do find, like, especially with South Carolina, what I find interesting is Dawn is kind of like the Nick Saban of women's basketball. Like, her bench is better than everyone else's starting lineup, just about. So, like, she
recruits well.
Yeah, she's got her starters out there, and then she's like, they're playing like trash. All 5 of them are out, and then she's putting 5 more kids out there, and it's like, damn, these kids are pretty good. Like, and that, to me, as someone who dabbled in a little bit of basketball through high school, like that would be just completely demoralizing as
that's right.
The coach just took out the entire starting lineup, and here comes the next 5, and it's like,
and they're better.
Why do these guys look just as good as those guys? Like, damn it. So, because when you like Caitlin Clark, like she never came off the floor for Iowa.
Right.
And you watch like a South Carolina game, somebody screws up like a screen or a defensive assignment, and like Dawn Staley's gone Nick Saban yelling at them and pulling them out of the game, and they've put somebody else in there, and then that person goes and scores like 20 points, and you're like, that was the backup. What the hell's So that's good coaching. She's got an incredible amount of depth, and I think that's what sets South Carolina apart. And the women's game is much more team oriented, and I do find that interesting. Like much more passing, much more, developing plays and
more
things like that. Right. Yeah. Whereas in men's college basketball is that to a point. The NBA it's tough for me to watch. I grew up in Illinois when Jordan and them were going through.
You watched then, I would have said.
Yeah, and that was kind of the start of, like, you've got, even though that was a really good Bulls team, that was the start of, like, we're going to have one person that the offense just kind of flows through. And to me, that it's just very
interesting,
boring. I want to see teams pass, and I kind of saw, like, Golden State was really good at that when they had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and they were, just whipping the ball all over the court, and those guys could shoot from like the 5th or 6th row.
That's right.
You're just like,
I think he does in practice.
It's like, how do you defend that? Like, I don't know. You got to play defense from like the free throw line all the way across the half court, mid court.
I kind of dismiss, to my own, it's my own fault. I dismiss women. I've seen women play basketball, usually just the highlights or something on Sports Center years ago, and it didn't strike me as being great. But then, like many others, probably when you kept seeing Caitlin Clark on the highlights, you said, well, let me watch some of this. And it was a much better game. It's a much better product than it was 10 years ago, I think. Not that I watched it consistently throughout it.
Yeah, and I don't want to shit on women's athletics or anything, but I find myself as probably in the larger group of people that are like the women's soccer. Like I'll watch that all day, like the Olympics, the World Cup. Like I find it interesting. And I don't know if it's like a little part of me that's like, go USA.
Yeah.
You know, but the day-to-day, I mean, South Carolina would probably be the closest thing of a female sport. Like I don't watch professional women's soccer.
Right.
I see it on TV every once in a while and just like, do I want to watch that? And I'm like, ooh, Cobra. Sylvester Stallone with a toothpick in his mouth the entire like.
I'll choose this.
I'll choose this, and you know, it's not a knock on women's sport. I'm just a Neanderthal. You know, he drives an excellent car in that movie, and
that is the highlight of the movie.
You know, there's the weird dude with the scars on his face, like swinging an axe around, and I'm like, I can just do this all day. You know,
it's so horrendous. You can't turn. It's a train wreck. You can't turn away from it.
No, it's bad.
It's really bad.
A lot of those 80s movies are. I wonder if he wrote that one. We talked earlier about him being the.
I don't. It's hard to make that. Maybe he did, but
isn't the character's name like Koborowski or something like that? That's why he's called Cobra. Or did I just do the Polish
thing?
You
just did the same thing
that you did.
We're making everyone Polish today.
No, I gotta look that up. When people start watching this, they're gonna be like, "Who are these two?"
And
animals?
what is this movie, Cobra?
Oh, if you haven't seen it, you have to see it.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
I mean, you have to watch it one time.
Yeah, you have to see it.
And then one time is good.
Really is. Yeah. It's all this backlit Stallone shots with a toothpick hanging out of his mouth, and
I'm pretty sure he doesn't he kill like 8 people in a grocery store, like at the very beginning.
There was something
of it?
in the grocery store. I do remember. That's been years since I've seen this movie.
Oh, it's not a toothpick; it's a match. That's right.
Okay.
That is right.
But it's in every scene. It's like the star of the movie.
Oh, yeah. You type in Cobra Stallone, and the first thing that comes up is supermarket killer.
Okay.
So, was it worse than Tango and Cash?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. And probably pretty good distance, I think.
Let's see. Cast.
Although I haven't seen that one in a while either.
Cobra. Sylvester Stallone played Marion Cobaretti. So
Cobaretti. He's Italian, not Polish.
Not Polish, but
European of some descent.
So
that's I haven't. You've seen all these movies. I've seen the same movies, a lot of them, but those are just horrendous. I remember that because I think there's a picture of me and probably my best friend. We're sitting in front of the theater from high school. And there's movies at this Altima Triple Village Cinema, and there's no longer theaters there. There's 3 movies in the background on the marquee. I think one of them is Cobra. One of them is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I think
excellent movie.
Excellent. That Oscar-worthy film there. Yeah. And I think one of them is Cobra. I have to go back and look at that picture. But what a show.
Does Matthew Broderick have a lot of range as an actor, or is he pretty much a?
Well, he went on got on Broadway. He was in plays and such. But
that's what I mean. Like he's kind of like a.
If he plays the same character.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same character, but he's always kind of the same, like upbeat or. I mean, Cable Guy was.
That's right. Another great one.
Poor career choice. You know.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Jim Carrey and Jack Black torpedoed that movie. Might have been Jack Black's first movie. I don't know. Wasn't he Matthew Broderick's like buddy in that movie?
Yeah, I think so. I've never seen Matthew Broderick play that much of a stretch. I don't think. I'm sure he's been in stuff I haven't seen, but
like even
War Games.
Did you see the? There was like, I guess that's how they do it now. Is they had the little television show. It was like Dope Sick that had like Michael Keaton was in it. And then they had like another TV show that was the Oxy, and he was the.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's somewhat recent. Here,
yeah, he was the family.
Yeah,
or he was the head of the family that came up with it.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched that. I watched all 3 of them. There was Dope Sick with Michael Keaton. Then there was whichever one Matthew Broderick was in.
Right.
And then there was another one, and to me, that guy did the best job of portraying that. I forget the name of the family that came up with the Oxycontin, but
yeah, they came up with something else too, didn't they? They're like, they've been frowned upon for several different reasons.
Yeah, but I felt like the guy that, and I don't want to take a shit on him. He's a very good actor, but he's always kind of in supportive roles. Yeah. but I felt like he did a good job of. It was more realistic. You know, Matthew Broderick was a little bit over the top.
Okay.
Kind of like he is with most of his stuff, but like he was in Godzilla.
Really?
Yeah, it was
You got
terrible.
boys. That's why you saw Godzilla, I would assume. Or just some
This
choice
was
you
like,
made on
this
your
was
own?
like 1998.
Well, you're still a young man then.
Yeah. I was a freshman in high school, and it was a poor choice then to watch that movie.
Even then. I thought he was in that movie? Broderick was in that Godzilla?
Yeah, he was the scientist, the one in New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, where it took place in New York. He was the.
Yeah, that would be. I don't know if that was on my radar.
I'm trying to think of. He's been in a couple of like. He was in that weird musical with Will Ferrell where he was the actual Nazi. Will Ferrell was the.
Where have I been living? I don't know.
The Broadway musical that
Will
they turned.
Ferrell and Matthew Broderick were in a play together.
It was a movie about a play.
A movie about a play. Okay.
The producers.
Oh, I know the movie. I know the name.
Yeah. So
I know the
Will
plot of it.
Ferrell is like the German. I don't know.
There's a lot of
Me and
Nazi commentary in this
wife,
podcast.
girlfriend at the time went and saw it, and I didn't realize it was a musical until about 5 minutes in, and I was like, oh boy, I'm just gonna have to ride this one out, I guess. You know,
I have to see this.
Nathan Lane was in
Nathan Lane. That's what I was thinking about.
it.
Yeah, I remember him and Matthew Broderick being the guy on the cover of the playbill.
But does Matthew Broderick need to be in anything else? Because War Games was epic.
Yes,
Ferris Bueller's Day Off is
was one of the. It's in my easily top 10, maybe top 5.
Yeah. I'll put it in the top 10.
Yeah.
You know, and if you go genre specific, it might be number 1.
Yeah.
But
Now, what genre would that be? Where would you place Ferris Bueller? I mean, obviously, it's a comedy, but it's not
it's a
just.
comedy?
It's not a. Well, I just think it was a documentary.
he's not a real person. Thought he was just playing some kid that went to Sherman High School, and
He was the guy that everyone wanted. That's like if you could describe yourself eloquently at that age, that's who you wanted to be. You know,
Yeah.
most kids anyway.
much more mature than all the other high school kids.
He had everything rigged. Everything was in his favor. He could do anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
When you're that age, you don't get to do anything that you want to do.
Yeah, he just made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is actually like his buddy Alan. What's the actor's name?
Oh man, he's great. I don't know his name. I know it's Cameron in the movie, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that might be.
You probably know his name.
No, it's like Alan. I want to say Thick, but that's a different guy.
Cameron Fry, Alan Ruck.
Alan Ruck.
Very good.
Charlie Sheen was in that movie. Wasn't
very
he
end.
at the end where Jennifer
He was
Grey
arrested. They both got arrested.
she was about to choke him because he referenced he
threatened
was
him.
like, "Oh, you know Ferris." Weird that he looked exactly like he looks now, drugged out and strung out.
It's just a little foreshadowing for Charlie.
But yeah, just a great movie.
Oh,
like it, how it was shot. You know, they're at Wrigley Field. They're in some. Are they in a Polish parade? Am I? Are we on a kick here?
Polish and Nazis seems to be a recurring theme. Yeah, they were. It was some sort of parade though. What was the? I don't know what the parade was for.
I think it was something Polish. Like I know you're going to be like, Chuck, we've just isolated an entire country. You know,
Will be Euros in Poland.
Ferris Bueller Day Off parade.
And it seems like it was like a real parade. That they
Yeah.
But I feel like
It was
wasn't-
filmed during an actual parade
Yeah,
in
I feel
Chicago
like it
with
was
many
a-
of the people being unaware that they were part of a movie.
Yeah, I think the parade existed before they got there. Have you seen any mention of Polish people in this?
I typed in Polish and it said polished. So I don't. I seem to remember like the girls dressed up in like the
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
the
It
German.
was almost German, yeah. It did have some sort of German feel to it.
Steuben parade.
So that seems German.
Yeah, probably. Okay. We've let the polls down again.
We
about the
keep
third
trying to
time
introduce them, but we can't get there. So what else is going on?
Well, we did say that one of the things we were going to talk about is bourbon.
Oh yeah. And I can't really speak to it. I do enjoy it, but you're much more of a connoisseur.
I am a connoisseur of good bourbon, and when I was younger, bad bourbon. So, but
it's more about the alcohol content than it is about the.
Eventually, we want the podcast to be where we can actually be drinking some bourbon.
Yes. Do you have fellow
do that logistically today?
No, that'd be a little tough. That would be really tough. I think California Atlantic would frown upon that activity.
Yeah.
But I have another friend that's somewhat of a bourbon connoisseur, and we'd have to go somewhere. Of course, we can video it. I think that'd be an important part of that one. But I have no really knowledge of bourbons. I mean, I just recently figured out Jack Daniel's wasn't a bourbon, and what does bourbon mean? Kind of what makes a bourbon. Apparently, it can't be.
Hey, what's the podcast said? I almost learned something.
I almost learned something. That's right.
Teach the podcasters what makes bourbon a bourbon.
And we have one podcaster that knows what that is for sure. I'm a bit of a passerby in the bourbon.
Well, what do you think it means?
Well, I've learned it can't be made in Tennessee.
That's correct. It can only be made in
Kentucky.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's it.
So, and that is a qualifier for being. You don't have bourbons from around the world. You have bourbons, and they're all from Kentucky.
Yeah. You have whiskey that can be made anywhere, and then
Tennessee whiskey is
if whiskey is made in Scotland, it becomes
Scottish whiskey
or
Scotch.
There you go.
I didn't know that until very recently.
So now we have actually done some almost of an education towards people. That and the ridiculous trivia that I know when they instituted the forward pass because of Teddy Roosevelt didn't want Harvard to spend any money to rebuild their football stadium. But
that was interesting. I'll have to read up on that later.
So my whole point behind the bourbon thing is I don't want this to be the hoity-toity like, oh, there's an essence of oak. It's like, yeah, they all have oak essence, and that's what they're stored in. But I don't want it to turn into that. I want it to turn into, hey, is this a good flavored bourbon? And I don't really want to get into the details of like it's got notes of vanilla and
does it taste good?
Like does it taste good? Is it like gasoline when you swallow it? Those are the things where somebody is like, and the bourbon we are talking about today is bullet bourbon.
Okay.
And so obviously we don't have it here, but I had some last night. You've had some previously.
Yes.
And I classify it as an above average bourbon. You can drink it without mixing it. You can mix it. I would say it's similar to Maker's Mark, and a lot of people mix Maker's Mark. I'm not a big mixer of bourbons anymore. I think I've become an adult at the age of 40 and outgrown that. So now the differentiation is, do I put ice in it or is it neat?
So yeah, that's interesting.
So Bullet is getting some ice in it because it needs a little bit of water or something to temper down the gasoline feel as you're swallowing it.
Okay.
Whereas some of the other bourbons that I tend to like, if you put ice in it, like I might, even if you're Jake Paul, start a fight. Like that's where we're at. But
it's a disgrace. Yeah, so I've never had it without ice. I think I drank Bullet with just ice in it.
And it's also
I never had anything without ice. Nothing. No.
And I'm reaching out to the people listening to this podcast that like want to sit down and watch a movie or watch a sporting event and just sip on some bourbon. Like I am not reaching out to the community that's like, we're pouring shots. Like, no, that's not what this is.
More of an
like we're just like we're enjoying the flavor, enjoying the moment, and not it's not
end game is not to be just
it's not senior year of high school or in college where we're funneling bourbon, which I have done that, and it is a poor life choice.
That never ends well.
Yeah. That is right below funneling box wine, which has also happened.
You can't poke a hole on top of it, and it'll come right out. You can squeeze the bag.
It looks so much cooler coming down a funnel, but it does not feel cool when it's coming back up.
Oh, God.
So
what would the ideal podcast be of bourbon tasting? Would we have like a selection of,
I think that would end poorly. I think ideally you have a segment.
We have at least three people to be able to, have
because
some
that's another thing is like I don't want to listen to a fucking podcast about bourbon for 45 minutes. Like, I want the guys to be
It's
like,
not about them. It's about us drinking bourbon.
I want it to be a little bit better than Joe Rogan's plug for Buffalo Trace. It's damn good whiskey. He's like, which
How would you do that, though?
The group of Buffalo Trace, they actually have some. It's the distillery makes a couple of different. They make Eagle Rare. They make Buffalo Trace. They make Blanton's, Blanton's is up there in my top 3. And it's not a super expensive. You're talking about like $90 to $110, depending on the
with
economy.
or without ice. Is that one you drink? I'm gonna go ahead and send your scale.
It depends. So in the
should
summer,
your scale be like top tier is no ice. The next one down is ice, and the next one down like half and half Coke.
Yeah.
Something okay.
So, Blanton's. I will not look down on someone who puts ice on it as long as it is in the summer months and it's hot outside.
Okay.
Now Booker's problems if ice cubes are
really?
going in there. Yeah, it is neat. Now that is also problematic. Like, I don't like drinking a lot of neat bourbon in 110 degree humidity where I'm like, I want something cold. So usually, like, I've got a bottle of Booker's. It's getting close.
It's preserved.
The weather is starting to get right. So we'll start seeing some of that make an appearance here at the Chapel House.
Is it more expensive than is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than Blanton's. Booker's is like 110, 120. And so it's pretty good. It's corked. It's nice. It comes in a little wooden kind of little crate with a little piece of glass over the front of it. So it's very well done. A lot of
Presented well.
Yeah. And it tastes phenomenal.
I'll have to try one of these.
One of our fellow colleagues here at the mill calls it the nectar of the gods.
Wow.
So
They should really think about renaming
it's
it.
high praise. and don't get me wrong, it is good. But I haven't had any like Poppy Van Winkle that's $1,500 a bottle, or some of these bourbons that are just stupid. So
Yeah, I think you're just showing off if you have that in your house.
yeah.
You're not gonna drink
I mean, at some point, like if I win the lottery or something, like obviously
You have to try it,
I'll go try it. Or if you go out to one of our famous resorts here, St. Simon's, the King and Prince or something, and you're out there and like, give me a shot of that.
It's like the house bourbon.
Yeah, it's $500. Put that right back up there. Where is the Jack Daniels? That's not bourbon. It's like, I don't care at this point. Like, what are you guys charging for a shot of Jack Daniels? Well, it's like $20. Christ almighty. You guys don't have enough money out here?
I know. We went to the first time. Was it the first time?
Cloister?
No, I've never been over there. Well, not to eat. In Vegas, just went to the bar, and just get a couple mixed drinks. It wasn't just simple cocktail, rum and Coke or something. They were $25. That was shocking. I said, I can buy a whole bottle of this cheap crap right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, drinking.
You're paying for the experience.
That's right. Don't go complaining about money if you're drinking in a bar in Las Vegas.
So, but that's I do want to have, like, you've got your buddy that's a bourbon connoisseur. Like,
Yeah, I am not. I do enjoy it. That's my, I've gone different ways over the years.
We can do the flight episode where I'm like, hey, here's the low grade that is fine to put a piece of Coca-Cola or something in. But then you have to be careful, like, because we talk about cocktails. Like, a Jack and Coke is technically a cocktail. Mm-hmm. But it is not an old-fashioned.
That's right.
An old-fashioned is
Bourbon and
up here, and Jack and Coke is down here.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Jack and Coke is Kenny Powers. An old-fashioned is George Clooney.
Okay.
Like, there is a level of class and dignity.
That's a good way to frame it.
So, and shout out to Danny McBride, because him and my brother look alike.
Oh, yeah, you said that. You showed me a picture, actually.
Yeah.
And they do.
And if
Kinda
Chip
look alike.
listens to this, he's going to be pissed, because he says he doesn't.
Does he not enjoy that comparison?
No. And you can't really blame him. Yeah. Like, Danny McBride is not somebody that you
Physically
want to be.
But he is hilarious.
That does bring up a good topic, though. Doppelgangers.
No.
Do you have one? Has anyone ever confused you? You're a unique specimen because you're tall.
Yeah.
So that, like, people are like, no, you're too tall to look like that guy. But, me, I'm in that. I'm a little bit shorter than the national average. What's the national average? 5'9", 5'10",
5'10", somewhere in there.
Yeah, 5'8". So people are like, is is that Tony Stewart?
Smoke.
That's what I used to get a lot, especially when I worked in Waycross, Georgia.
Yeah, he's a hero over there.
You,
for sure.
you venture into the Applebee's and like people are looking and they're like pointing and
You ever wear an orange Home Depot shirt? Just
no, but there was this gag when I was in college. Elliot, he was on a video game cover, and he had like the longer hair that kind of flipped out under the hat. He was wearing sunglasses. He had like a little bad goatee, and that's about the only facial hair I could grow in college. Well, like we are in Blockbuster Video, name drop, by the way, dude.
dating yourself.
Do people under the age of 30 know what a Blockbuster is?
And how much time we spent in there.
Did you know you could actually rent VCRs from Blockbuster?
If you didn't have a video cassette recorder, you could take one with you with the tape.
But we were in there and we were renting some video games, and my cousin, who was my college roommate, was like, why are you on the cover of a video game? And I was like, don't be a dick. And he was like, and it's a NASCAR game. And I was like, now you're just being ridiculous. Nothing against NASCAR. I love, like I grew up, my brother's a huge NASCAR fan, and I'm not a huge fan, but I can watch a race. And if you can watch a NASCAR race, you're a different breed, because watching cars go around in a circle for 4 hours for something to happen, and then when it does happen to Dale Earnhardt, like the entire world is turned upside down, but I will tell people that, who are going to listen to this podcast, because we've mentioned Nazis and Poles, and they're going to be like, these guys are animals.
Not in an offensive way, though. It's very
Go to
passive.
a NASCAR race, because going to one in person, it's like a hockey. Like, you ever been to a hockey game?
Yeah. Well, a minor league.
Yeah.
Basically went to a fight and a hockey game broke out.
you watch hockey on TV and you're just like, okay. But you actually go to the game. They encourage people to drive under the influence after the game. It's just a nut, started in Canada, where they're always drunk.
Oh yeah.
So they just have a ridiculous tolerance for it. And
It's cold and dark. So
yeah, there's blood on the ice. They're all skating around on swords. The fact that more people don't die during hockey games is incredible.
Yeah. You can easily take one to the neck and be done right then.
And there's been numerous goalies, which is always weird to me because they have the most protection.
Yeah.
But it's been 2 or 3 goalies that you'll occasionally see. Yeah, his jugular was cut. God almighty.
I think we should call a game.
But going to a NASCAR race in person it's just crazy, especially if you're sitting like close to the track.
Yeah.
And these
See how fast these cars go.
Well, the speed, but also the power of the engines that like shake an entire grandstand, and you're like, those are stock cars.
Yeah.
Like, those are cars that are supposed to be on the like on the highway.
Yeah.
And
they're just shaped
I
similarly.
just crapped my pants as they came into turn 3. And it's just, that's kind of what hooked me, is because I don't like watching things going
circles.
Like, I'll watch the Olympics. Like, I'll watch those guys run in a circle because it's over in 40 seconds.
Yeah.
This is 4 hours. This is your entire Sunday.
Yeah.
And
so you actually went to a race?
Yeah, I've been to a couple.
Which racetrack?
So Atlanta.
They say that's a good one to watch.
That's a good one. Talladega.
Oh yeah.
For the people watching. So I've been to Talladega twice.
Don't you park in like a field in
Talladega?
Yeah.
And there's usually multiple heavier set couples having relations in public.
No.
And it's usually like cheered, like somebody like chugging or doing a keg stand. Like people walk by and they're like, yeah, and then you keep going, and
it's a spectator sport.
Yeah. Well, I think it's frowned upon to stand and watch. I think it's okay
to just stand and watch.
Yeah, I think to just take a glimpse and be like, good job, and keep going. Because I didn't see anyone standing around. Now, again, these people were not the people that you wanted to stand around and watch doing this to begin with.
No.
But, you're like, why is this going on? Where are the police?
Yeah, it would take a minute just to figure out what the hell was going on.
So,
that's
I haven't
to look out for.
I haven't seen a race, but I've been to Bristol, and that's a cool racetrack. And
I would imagine that's a short track, so it would be easy to watch a race there.
Yeah,
but
what's crazy is like people don't realize how big Bristol is. Like, because you see it and you're like, Jesus,
Yeah.
it looks like a parking garage that they're racing around in.
Yeah.
Because, they never get up over 100 miles an hour. But
in person, it's
like,
much larger.
a few years ago, they did, I think, Tennessee and Virginia Tech played each other at Bristol.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Like, the stands were so far away from because, they put the football field in the infield.
In the center, yeah.
And you're like, good Lord. I mean, and it was, I think it's 100,000 people can go watch the game. So, and then they had, seats everywhere else. But it was like, damn, that's actually a huge, because you're thinking like, it's not that much bigger than Neyland Stadium. And this thing, like Neyland Stadium, could fit inside this stadium.
Good Lord.
Crazy, but
Yeah, I've never been to a NASCAR race. I've been to drag races.
Yeah.
Same thing, that power.
Yeah.
The whole ground rumbles when these cars fire off. And it's
the
crazy.
noise is just like
You better have headphones on.
That was my first mistake. We went to Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I'm like, I don't have headphones, I don't have earplugs, and we're sitting like 15 rows from the turn. And I just remember like driving home, and I was just like, womp, womp, womp.
People get looking at
Mom,
you.
what? Wiggling my ear, Mom. It's like there was a little bit of, I may never hear again. Like, this is
There's probably
terrifying.
some permanent damage.
But, yeah, it's one of those things, and obviously there's a certain culture that goes to NASCAR races.
Well, what you just described for Talladega, Alabama, that's something to be on the lookout for sure.
But
Two big heavies going at it before you even get in the stadium.
never been to a road course, which those are like California.
That seems like that would be almost impossible to watch. I guess you're just
Yeah,
watching
you're
like
just-
a golf course. You're just sitting at a hole waiting for them to come by.
And I guess it's very similar to like the Formula One stuff in Europe, which, I mean, those guys are like rock stars.
That's incredible now.
That Monaco race is. I want to go visit Monaco, but it's like St. Simon's. They do a credit check. There's nowhere here that you could stay.
You won't be comfortable here.
Now, we do have some positions opening in some of our yachts for employment. Is that what you're looking for? And I was like, I was just going to take my wife on vacation. Like, I don't want to go work in somebody's yacht. Like, do we get to ride in the yacht if we work on it? Oh, yeah. But, it's very similar to some slavery undertones.
Now I'd like to go to. They have more and more F1 races here now. That Miami and Texas, I think's had one. Vegas, of course, just had one this year. And I watched that. You watched that Netflix series? I think it's called Formula One. I think 4 or 5 seasons deep.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes.
Yeah,
my youngest, he's into that kind of stuff.
My parents used to go all the time. Daddy was at. Mom and Daddy were at the. I think Daytona race, one of the qualifiers when Bill Elliott set the track record before they had restrictor plate racing on.
Oh yeah,
and I remember Daddy saying it was a visible difference when he came around the track by himself, and it was suck you into the fence and blow you back out as he came by. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me that, which a lot of the tracks now have larger barriers, but there's some of those people that in the 90s, you're sitting at the front row. Those cars are from me to you. That car is going 200 miles an hour, and you think that chain link fence is going to protect you? No, sir.
I assumed it happened before we started seeing it. Those videos now, of course, cars going into the stands. And the chain link fence does an amazing job, really. Much better than
just kind of catching it. Yeah.
It does better than what I thought it would have done.
It's always the random tire that makes it over the fence.
Like 10 people.
It's just, you don't realize, well, it's a tire, it's rubber, it's 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's going to cut you in half.
It's not light.
If it hits you in the head, your head's gone. It's like a cannonball.
Yeah.
Like that scene, the scene from what was that movie, The Patriot?
Yeah.
Where Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger are just like having a general conversation in that house, and there's a battle going on in the field behind them, and
Cannonball blows in.
Cannonball just takes one guy's knee out and then takes another guy's head off, and Mel Gibson's like, the battle was over before it began, and it's wow. Yeah.
So yeah, well, I don't know. Like I said, I would like to go to a race at some point. I want to go to Daytona. I know people that have gone to Daytona, and it's a nightmare parking, getting into that place.
It's just,
now that you gave me the advantages of seeing one in Talladega.
If the podcast takes off and we can get some kind of like corporate, they fly us on a helicopter,
Drop us in the infield.
Yeah, I'll
That'd
do
be
that.
ideal.
I have. Have you ever been there? to the track.
I've been past it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been down the road, but
It is massive.
Yeah.
Like the infield is,
was it 2.5 mile track or something like that? Or is it that big?
I think it's a mile and a half.
Mile and a half. Okay.
But it is massive.
Yeah.
The,
Does it
in
just
the
from
infield,
outside?
there is a lake in the middle of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like
They call
Central.
it a oval or something.
Yeah, it's like Central Park. Like you start walking and like by the time I get to the end of this thing, it's getting nighttime. But like, oh, here's a freshwater lake. Let's go fishing. It's just it's
finish this race
crazy.
Yeah, I haven't never been. I would like to go, but yeah, Daytona. I've heard horror stories about getting in and out of there. So I don't like standing in line for anything. So
Yeah, that's
a problem.
This is where the podcast was born out of. We have a lot of similarities. Like we took the kids to Universal Islands of Adventure last year, and I paid for the fast passes, and that was like $700.
Maybe the best 700 you've ever spent.
And that's what, like, you know, I got Cooper, ADHD, who can't stand in line. In fact, at the end of the night when my mom went with us and said we like walked 9 miles that day, and my 9-year-old was just doing laps around the little restaurant we were sitting in. So he just couldn't contain himself. And she was like, I don't understand how he's still moving.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
That's why we went to a doctor about it.
We ruined the kids.
Yeah.
Like, because now, like, we went to Wild Adventures after, you know, there are no lines at Wild Adventures. And they were like, this sucks. Why aren't we just going to the front like we did at Universal? Wild Adventures doesn't do fast passes. Why not? I was like, there's 8 people in front of us. I mean, we're on the next ride. They're like,
I don't want to
so
wait.
now, like, if we go to a park, like, I'm concerned, you know, which we did. We went to SeaWorld with my in-laws. Why are we standing for so long? It's like 1,000 people ahead of us to ride these rides. We didn't do this the last time we were at a park. And I was like, do you want to talk to Pa and Bama about getting fast passes? Because I'm not buying fast passes at SeaWorld. You know, there's already connotations that this is a prison for animals, and I don't want to contribute to that.
That's right. I want to take a moral stand here and save myself $1,000. Yeah, it seems like they changed. We did it at Disney one time. We did it twice, it seems like. And the first time we did it, it was a free-for-all. Like, you could go anywhere, anytime, and get on a ride. And then they started metering it out, because I think it became a problem, I guess. And you could have a ticket for one ride, maybe a second ride, but that after 2 you were done until you rode one of the rides.
Yeah, and I guess all the parks do it differently, because you're right. Like, once the fast pass became a thing, people were just, you didn't have to pay for them. Like, you could go get this ticket, and your ticket's like hey, in an hour,
That's right.
you come scan your ticket and you can ride the ride. But now everybody's like, oh, that's capitalism. Let's lean into this. And
Come up front?
you know, your ticket to the park is $100, and a fast pass is also $100, and you get to ride every ride. But then that turned into everybody was buying fast passes, and it was like the fast pass line was
Longer than the other one.
longer than the other line. So now I think they actually like, this is how many fast passes are available for the day. And
Because if you're going somewhere like Disney or any of those high dollar, I don't know what the ticket is now. It's well over $100.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, what's $200?
Right.
You know, you're already in this deep. You might as well go ahead and enjoy the day. We're at an hour 30 on this one.
Wow.
We already did it, and we had another 15 or 20 minutes.
all right, well, I've been throwing out topics. What you got? You had a list.
I did have a list originally, but it's kind of covered the same stuff. One thing I wrote down too was remember, something that long ago, I wrote down, it come from a conversation we had about something you'd found on, I know, it was from you've been accosted by the homeless woman at the Parkers.
Yes.
So the hotel around the corner, and this will require some work pre-show here, but doing hotel reviews of that demographic of hotel that we believe, we don't know, this woman may live at.
Right. Yes.
But that was the Royal Inn was what I'd written down. But that'll require some
disclaimer
staging. Yeah, disclaimer.
She also told me that I was the most handsome man she's ever seen. Right. So I just need the public to know that. Yeah.
We'll post pictures later of her too. Yeah. And she had a very memorable outfit.
Yeah, her tiger outfit was very Will Ferrell from Kicking and Screaming. It's great. It's fantastic. Not how I felt like my first proposition for sex would have ended up. And I'm actually kind of proud of myself that I made it to the age of 40 without being propositioned. I don't know. Is that something to be proud of, or am I just not hanging out in the right spots?
Well, apparently you are hanging out in the right spots, because the Parkers on 341 apparently is the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Probably,
we will not indicate which Parkers on 341 because there's like 11 of them. So
that's true.
You have to figure that out on your own.
Yeah, but I have mentioned the name of the hotel, which is nearby. But
did you say the Royal Inn?
Yeah, the Royal Inn.
The Royal Inn.
There's a podcast sponsor.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to sponsor us.
I don't think we want them to. I think the first photo, if you pull their hotel up, is some guy laying on the sidewalk without a shirt on.
But I did see a lot of reviews where the owner was very interactive with the customers.
Yes, he was very helpful. He would pack your clothes for you, apparently. Bob? What's his name? Bob or Robert or something?
I want to say it was Charles.
Charles? Maybe it was.
I don't know. I just
mentioned
know
in several reviews.
I just know that he's the first hotel owner that I've ever seen mentioned squarely in a review. Yeah. Maybe Paris Hilton, like when I was, hotels.com. But I don't think she was the owner yet.
I don't think she could help you in your room, pack, or get rid of you, or whatever he was doing. Because he was mentioned in several different reviews, doing different activities. Like at one time he was in there. I think she came back to her room and he was there. He was in her room. Yeah, it's the Royal Inn. Stop by and see him. Earn some points.
Or don't. It's completely up to you. We are not recommending anything until we are financially compensated.
Yeah. The other ones, the bourbon reviews, hotel reviews, kind of work-related stuff. I got one top, neighborhood drug addicts. I'm not sure what I was thinking there. I have people that run up and down my road where I live.
Well,
it's not like a constant issue, but
yeah,
you can spot them.
Yeah,
Everybody drives by on a lawnmower on a county road.
I think it's become more of a. Is it a problem? I don't think it's a problem. Is it a nuisance? I don't think it's a nuisance.
It's just weird.
Yeah, and I think more and more people across the country are dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's one of
not
those
necessarily homeless people. It's like some weird purgatory. It's like they easily could be homeless. Yeah. And maybe they are. If you're driving a 42-inch lawn tractor down the road with some kind of trailer behind it with all your belongings,
or you stole it,
or maybe you're fleeing a scene of a crime, maybe at 3 miles an hour.
But this is where I'll dip my toe into the political realm here. It's one of the things we just do a shit job as a country. Like we hand out medication that like it's candy. And people get addicted to it, and then you can't afford Oxy or Vicodin anymore. So you go, what's the next best thing? And well, I don't know if best thing is the appropriate word, but
term as well.
And we just like I think it's even our food. Like our food is so addictive and bad for you. Like, there's a lot of countries that are like, no, we don't allow those chemicals.
That's not food.
We don't allow those chemicals in our food.
You're not supposed to put that in your mouth.
And you're talking to this person from like a third world country that's like, God, no, we don't allow that food. Like, you're just like,
we love it.
Like, there's a significant portion of the population of this country that is starving. And they just told me that they would not eat the shit that we eat in America.
We have that, but we use it to kill bugs. Well, we eat it.
So we don't do a good job of taking care of people here.
No.
And then we try to overcorrect where it's like was it New York that was like no more 42-ounce sodas?
Yeah, that's going to fix it.
Okay.
Or you can't vape in California, a flavored vape.
That place, man. Like,
yeah.
It's just like that's where you go to be a comedian because it's the gift that keeps on giving.
So much, yeah.
Right? Like
just walk the streets.
It's just like it doesn't make sense the amount of stuff that goes on there, and you're just and I think Joe Rogan talks about it all the time. That's why
away from there.
And you see so many people that are just fleeing from there,
and there are nice, beautiful parts of California, and I'm sure there's places that aren't scary. But I've only been to really Los Angeles, and it's not somewhere you want to stay for very long.
No,
it's a drop off point to get somewhere else. So that's about it.
And I think you know this. I lived there for 3 years, north of L.A., Air Force Base, Vandenberg Air Force Base. Talked about my dad was overseeing the ranch for the Reagans. But I mean, there are like like I would assume that California probably has like the most national and state parks that are probably just tremendous, right?
Oh yeah,
like
Yosemite and
that I keep watching that one Netflix documentary on the free solo guy that climbed
it's crazy
Yosemite or El Capitan.
El Capitan,
And it's just like the the video and the imagery and everything. It's like, man, and it's one of the few places in the world where you can like go snowboarding in the morning and surfing in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like you're that close to the ocean. And
there's a lot of positives for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just any big city. You go to Atlanta, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time there either.
No. No. And I know people from those places are like, you guys are just hicks from the sticks, and it's like,
that's
well,
not,
maybe, but
that's not untrue.
But it's
I know what I like, and I don't like to be. I'm not easy to scare, so to speak. But
it goes back to I don't like standing in line with people.
Exactly.
So I don't want to be in my car in a line with people,
No.
And I don't want to go places where, like, if I, here's honest admission, I've been in the Walmart in Brunswick, Georgia, one time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've lived here 6 years. No, 8 years. And prior to that, I lived in a little town only 40 minutes from here where this was like the closest big city, this or Waycross.
Yeah.
One time. And that was work-related.
You had to go.
Yeah. No, I take it back.
Like
Twice. Both were work-related, though.
Oh, yeah.
The first time I was looking for printer cartridges for our production area because they had to have their labels.
Oh, yeah.
And then second time was a cover for a phone because my phone got driven over by a contractor in a large piece of equipment who actually swerved to drive over it right in front of me, which was actually pretty hilarious because it slid out of the little cart buggy I was driving, hit the road, and I was like, oh, hell, it's laying in the road, and here comes this piece of equipment. And I look at him, and he makes eye contact with me, and he sees it in the road, and he just and just kept going.
Was this someone you had a previous relationship with?
I don't think so.
Other job?
But it could have been, I'm not the most approachable person if you don't know me.
That's right.
If you know me, like, well, that's just his face all the time. I'm going to go crack a joke and he'll smirk and tell me to eat a dick and leave.
Yeah.
But.
Well, my first, I really lived that experience. And I can't remember if it was my first time. I don't think it was my first time speaking to you. But it's my first time because you come in here. Yeah, I called you in the store because you had, against your will, been moved back to a previous position you had held, successfully held, but you had chosen to leave that position for several really good reasons, and now you were forced back into that position. And the joke was going around, not a joke, but at your expense was going around. Hey, things are going to be better. For one thing, Chuck's back over there, but he doesn't want to be over there. So
and everyone made a point to
that's right,
bring that up. Like, how you
I
doing
thought it'd be a
back
good
in
idea
your new
too.
job?
Oh,
in fact, there's still an employee out here who still calls me storeroom Chuck, just to see if I'll get fired.
It was the glory days of the storeroom, though. Apparently, from all the information that I have,
I don't know about that, but it operated and it functioned. I guess expectations are low.
The glory days. But yeah, I made the mistake of calling you because now I'm not seeing your face. I'm just on the phone with you. So, and I'm kind of giggly sometimes when I'm trying to make a joke. So, hey man, what's going on? Here you back living the dream or something, or congratulations. I think that's what I did. I congratulated you on your air quote promotion or whatever back to your old job. And it was just like,
it was just silence.
It was just dead silence. And I was like, oh shit. I'm trying to get some information out of this man, and now I pissed him off. But I think I got what I needed. But, that's.
I do remember we had like a weekly meeting or something, and it got to the point where like I just didn't even get on that call. I just sent you a spreadsheet. I was like, "This is the information you need."
Yeah.
People were like, "Okay."
It was the perfect Chuck Chappell response. Here, I don't need to be there. Here's the information.
I don't think I actually physically met you until I had moved on into a maintenance role.
Yeah,
because
that's
you were like, hey, need to talk to you
You
about
came
it.
in here.
Yeah, an annual.
You sat where you're sitting now, yeah.
right now. Well, we're not doing this.
That's
at
right.
Work.
We're not
We will edit this.
edit.
But yeah, you actually had a white chair because I was like, who the fuck has a white chair? He sat
Caught
down
so
and
much shit for that. That's in the conference room.
sat down and we discussed
We discussed
passport scheduling.
Yeah, but then at some point we got off to. This is when I really became interested in you, as you just telling me stories. I think it's Cooper, the youngest one.
Yeah,
You were telling me a story about he had either disassembled a lawnmower.
Yeah, my lawnmower.
And it was all out in the driveway,
Like
the pieces.
Oh no, that's two separate stories.
Okay.
Yeah, the first story was, I had to work, and my dad was going to watch the kids, and he's not very reliable as a supervisor of children. That was Mom's forte. Like, he just showed up and beat the shit out of you if there were if there was any problems during the day. But I was like, hey, you got to keep an eye on Cooper. Like, he's a little bit different. Oh, I guess I didn't raise 3 kids.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, sure.
Buckle up.
So I go to work. I come back. I open up the garage door, and my 0-turn lawnmower is in like 100 pieces. And I already knew what happened. Like there was no like, oh my God, like what,
I asked you to watch him.
So I walk inside and, there he is asleep in the recliner. And I'm like, hey, asshole, wake up. He said, what? I said, you and a Cooper PM in my lawnmower? And even though my dad was in the military and at one point was over facility maintenance, his idea of maintenance is, hey, Chuck, how do I thread this cord on this weed eater?
Oh.
Like, seriously, man? Like, I've sent you the video on YouTube. Like, how many times do you have to fucking call me about it? So, it's not very handy.
Yeah.
And I guess that's, like, me and my brother had to overcompensate to learn some of that stuff. Like, Jesus. Like,
But in actuality, you didn't ask him to repair your lawnmower.
No, I just asked him to watch my child and make sure he didn't do anything.
And that would have solved the issue.
And so I take him out in the garage, and it's in 1,000 pieces, and he goes, well, why'd you do that? And I said, I've been at work. What do you mean, why did I do that?
How long have you been asleep?
I said, where is Cooper? And he's like, well, I think he's upstairs. Cooper.
Ordering parts.
Comes down, and he's got oil and grease just all over him. And my dad was like, Jesus. And he was 4 at the time.
Oh.
Like, he could barely speak. Like, I mean, it's just terrible. And so, I just looked at him and I was like, put it back together. Because even though I consider myself more handy than my father and actually have a role in maintenance, that would have never been put back together by me.
You didn't take it apart, so it's going to be nearly impossible to assemble.
Yeah. So, and I actually went and got a bourbon. But it was a bottle and a tall glass.
A chair.
And sat in the garage and watched this pissed off 4-year-old put this thing back together. And it was even on wood blocks. Like, he took 2 of the tires off and put blocks under there. And used the jack that I had in the garage to, and I was like, how did you figure out which socket to use? He was like, I just do what you do. I just kept trying until it fit. I was like,
Did he ever describe what his motivation was, or he just was bored, wasn't nothing on television? Decided to take lawnmower apart.
That was 5 years ago. He would do the exact same thing today, and at the end of it, I'd be like, "Why'd you do that?" And he'd be like, "Why did I do what?" I tell my wife and his older brother, because his older brother is he's hard on himself. Like, if something doesn't work out, like a little bit tenderhearted, but like he gets upset if something doesn't go his way. And Cooper is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, Cooper, you just struck out 3 times in a baseball game. I was playing baseball.
What's next?
What? Oh, hey, did you see that buggy drive by? It's just like, I mean, when he was playing soccer, in like the little kids soccer, the one that's just total chaos where they're all just, chasing the ball around. Like, he was really good at it because by that time in the day, his Adderall had worn off, and so he was wide ass open. Yeah. and he's pretty quick. So he was just outrunning all these kids. And he figured out, like, if I score goals, like, Dad gives me dollar bills. So he was just like, goal, goal, goal. But at the rec field, you got the rec department driving around on the buggies, like, taking drinks to referees and chalk and goals and whatever else they're doing. And so he'd be like on a wide open sprint, here's the buggy. Just stop. Watch the buggy.
Squirrel.
He's just like, and people are like, what's he doing? And I'm like, he's looking at the buggy. And they're like, why? And I was like,
that's a question
like,
we'll
when
never
he comes
answer.
over here after the game, you can ask him. And they're like, why'd you stop running to look at that buggy? And he was like, what buggy?
What are you talking about?
He's like, who is this stranger that I don't know asking me questions? So
that's got to be an interesting thought process for him.
So
He's probably at ease though with it because, like I say, he doesn't remember what just happened.
Yeah, he moves on to the next thing, and it's just like, like he got in trouble this week, and I was like, no TV for the rest of the week till Friday. You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? He's like, that's some violation of like my basic rights.
Treaty
established. I was like, you don't have any rights. He was just like, that seems rude. But the next day, just like
you're watch TV.
You're expecting him to be like, can I watch TV today? So what are you doing without your TV? And he was like, rude to bring it up, but I'm going to read a book, and the book's upside down, so I know he's not reading it. But yeah, the other incident that you're talking about, because you combined two of them, was he was dragging stuff out of the garage while I was doing yard work. And our house right now, I got to tear our fence down and put a new fence on because it got damaged from the hurricane. But I would shut the back gate while I was cutting grass. And he dragged like two things out. And I said, hey, what are you doing? And, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just doing.
He's moving. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, you will not take another thing out of that garage. Do you understand? And he stomped his foot, head down. I was like, is that a yes? I'm not sure. He just, I said, if you move another thing out of that garage, it's going to end badly. And then I shut the gate and I start cutting grass. I opened the gate. Everything that was not physically bolted to a wall or held down by straps or something is in the driveway. And there's my neighbor in his lawn chair drinking a beer. And I was like, I look at Kevin and he said, that fool was a working. And I said, why didn't you stop him? And he was like, I did say, hey, your dad said you shouldn't do that. And I'm pretty sure he pulled a knife on me. And I was like,
or something he drug out of the garage.
Something he drug out of the garage.
It's like a go big or go home kind of thing. I'm getting in trouble.
And so I was like, you realize you're putting all of this back in the garage? And he was like, yes. And I was like, sir. And he goes,
that's all you had left.
he goes, ma'am, and then starts toting stuff back into the garage. And I'm just like, freaking animal, man. But he just, to this day, like this morning, my wife brought me a drink, and I was like, what are y'all doing today? And she was like, kids have already tried to kill each other once. And, Grafton had got a new set of headphones for, music and video games, computer, Bluetooth, his laptop.
Yeah.
And one of the earmuffs was just completely pulled off. Like he got it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's laying next to Cooper in the little game room, computer room we have. And, my wife's like, Cooper, why did you take that off? Why is it always my fault? And then she's like,
it's next
she's
to you.
like, then he just went into like this like full rampage, like throwing stuff, like everybody blames me, like I'm the criminal, blah, 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 blah. Like I've been gone an hour and it's, it's turned into Gaza. Like it's just a war zone.
Yeah, two boys. Whew. Two girls is something, but two boys, that's two wild animals living together.
Yeah. And I guess that's something else that we've kind of, like you have the female perspective, and I have the outside dog that sleeps inside, that spends all day outside. I have that perspective.
Yeah, it's a different tune for sure. Both have their pitfalls, but yeah, that yours seems almost scary. Not yours particularly, but having two boys relatively close in age. Me being a boy, having grown up, I had a sister. So it was a different dynamic.
Yeah.
But having brothers, man, they're always rough.
And me and my brother, we were 6.5 years apart in age. So, like, we didn't have that. Like, he was in high school when I was, like, still in elementary school.
Yeah.
So, like, the gap was so big that it wasn't there. Like, we got into a handful of scuffles that, I mean, just ended poorly for me.
That's right.
The
age gap was in his advantage.
So, yeah, it's been an obvious growing experience for me and my wife. My wife's just terrified, and the amount of testosterone that just
she's outnumbered.
Floats around the house.
Bless her heart.
Which is kind of the situation you're in. And
yeah, it's opposite.
Most of my friends have girls.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm the only one that's, like, doubled up on boys. Like, they've all got girls. Like, even some of our coworkers, they're all girls. Yep, girls. Yep, girls. And it's just like, you guys are, what do you do for your escape? Because, like, I get home and I'm like the testosterone starts pumping. Like,
yeah.
All right, I got to punch somebody in the face. You guys are like,
I feel like you're going to have to defend yourself at some point.
I guess you start a podcast.
That's right. That's right. This is a relief. This is our therapy we were talking about. Well,
all right, we got to find something to wrap it up on.
I know. What would we wrap it up on?
People who suck. I have that as a topic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really talk about people. I just want to name, like, people who suck and then just move on.
And why they suck.
All right, well, you lead it off.
So people that suck. And now I have to qualify.
Are you going to name names, or are you just going to generalize? Okay.
But
I won't name names if you don't name names.
In our world, you and I work, I'll have to say there aren't many people I would consider that I have to work with constantly that suck. There are some that are annoying, like people that, won't stop talking sometimes.
I'm one of those. Like,
no, you're not.
You got to throw me out of your office every once in a while. Like, hey, Chuck, I actually have to do work
But there's
today.
information that I want to hear or I need to hear. And then there's people that just want to talk, and they're really not. It's a one-way thing. It's like a check valve. Those people kind of suck. There are people that pretend to know things or act as if they know things. This is probably my biggest pet peeve. If you behave as if you know something, I'm a very gullible person in that aspect. If you are talking above my head, I'm going to assume you know what you're talking about. And then I find out later that you have no idea what you're talking about. You learned a new word and you're tossing it around. That really pisses me off.
Yeah, they've got a word of the day calendar, and they're like, how do I fit this one in?
And that whole concept of, you're speaking about a process that, I don't know anything about, and you're talking about it as if you with some authority that you know what you're talking about, then I will assume that you know what you're talking about. But if I find out that you led me down the wrong path, you are on the list, and I will never trust anything you say again, and you suck. So that's a qualifier for sucking.
Okay. All right.
What's your definition of it?
I mean, pretty much everybody sucks.
I should have seen that coming.
That's why I wasn't.
You have to prove yourself better than that.
That's why I wasn't going to name names, because it's going to be another hour and a half of me just like
we're starting to they're opposite ends of the table. I'm assuming everybody knows what they're doing. You're assuming nobody knows what they're doing.
No, people who suck. I think, especially here recently, like virtue signaling. Like, look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
A lot of celebrities suck because they're like, look at how I'm impacting the environment as I get on my G5 and scoot to my next production. So I'm not enamored or in awe by celebrities. I do appreciate what they do and that they're good at something.
That's right.
Because I obviously like people who are good at things. Like I'm not like even ballet, which I would probably never go to see unless my wife was like, we're going to go see the ballet.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Had a gun
like somebody who has spent time and effort into becoming good at that.
Even if I can't appreciate it,
right?
I can appreciate that they really worked hard. Yeah.
But yeah, people who just constantly virtue signal or narcissists.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really stand out to me. Like the interaction I had with the young person. I can't call it young woman because she scolded me.
That's right. The Starbucks.
The Starbucks incident. And, and again, at no point was I trying to be disrespectful. I've just, both of my parents are from the South. All of my family's from the South. So for 40 years, when I've held a door for a woman and she says, thank you, it's yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I got scolded for that. And, it was like the me, myself, and Irene, like the Jim Carrey, where like my head started twitching, and I was just like, today's the day.
And this poor woman,
Yeah,
brought it on herself, but had no idea what she was doing.
So, and then I think elections in this country really bring out the suckiness of people, because it's you've got one side saying one thing, and then it doesn't go their way, and then they're immediately saying the thing that the other side said, and you're just like, oh my God.
This is a colossal waste of time and energy.
Yeah. And I don't feel like we get any better. And I think the 435 representatives of Congress and the 100 representatives in the Senate need term limits, and we need to cycle through those people faster so that you don't run into a Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell scenario where it's just like, oh my God. And then you got all these people that, like, the president's nominating for office, and like, I'm wondering the same thing that some of these people are wondering, like, is this person qualified to do this?
Yeah.
Like, we're about to find out. Like, I mean, if,
it's just him pointing and choosing.
But it proves the system of, hey, like, that person's not qualified to do that. Well, who's qualified to do it? Well, these people that have been bureaucrats for their entire careers. Yeah. And that is kind of why, like, our country seems to never take the next step.
Because they're qualified to be bureaucrats.
Yeah, because they're qualified to be bureaucrats. Yeah. Like, they're qualified to go to a bunch of meetings, sit in front of committees, and not really make any decisions. But they don't teeter us into, like, the end of the world. like that's the one, like, thing that they're
fingernails.
Like they're not going to push us over the edge. And
that's not a good place to be.
This cloud and this clown car that he's unloading might do that, and it very well may be. Like, I'm not up here like, like, America's going to turn around right here. Like, we may very well start World War III tomorrow.
We are turning, that's for sure.
So
hopefully it works out in our favor. But yeah.
So that's the one thing. People who suck, I think. Yeah. People who listen to this podcast probably don't suck. They're probably like, I'm looking for something to, I can put my headphones on in, and I'm at work, and I'm like, these two clowns are talking about the most ridiculous shit ever. And then occasionally they throw in, like, a bourbon, hey, drink this bourbon, or don't go to this hotel. And,
the Royal Inn.
At the end of the day, I think people need to, I know I do, they just need to laugh.
That's right. And that's what
God bless comedians, except the comedians that went woke, that were like, oh, we can't make fun of these people anymore.
There aren't comedians to me. They're just...
Right now, the only people you can make fun of are you and me, right?
That's right.
White, overweight guys.
That's it. That's us.
Okay.
That's our demo. Right. So come see us.
Yeah. All right. Good first episode?
Good first episode.
All right.
See what we can do in post.
All right. Drop the mic, but don't really drop it, because these are the only way we can actually keep recording.
See ya.